we're going to jump right into the text. Um, so Rene Descartes was a French philosopher who lived from 1596 until 1650. Um, so I'll type his name here into the Google Doc. And the dates, you don't need to know these dates. I'm just telling you so you can get an idea of the time frame. 1596 to 1650. And he is considered or called the father of modern philosophy. That's his big title, the father of modern philosophy. In order to understand the modern philosophy part or aspect, you have to understand that philosophy has been kind of broken down into different historically. So when we're looking at the history of philosophy, we had ancient philosophy, so that's things like Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. That would be ancient philosophy. um, Medieval philosophy, and that's medieval is a lot of Catholic theology. So we have people like Saint Thomas Aquinas as famous medieval philosophers, Saint Augustine. Saint Augustine is very early. Actually, I'm not sure that Saint Augustine is medieval. He might be considered an ancient philosopher. Um, and then modern philosophy, and then of course we now have contemporary philosophy, which is stuff that's going on now. Um, and even modern philosophy itself can be split up into different periods. It's not all very clear. What it's a big label. So Descartes, for example, is considered to be an early modern. He's the first, but there are others later, like Kant, who I mentioned earlier. We talked about Kant. Kant is a late modern. He's still considered in the modern period, but he's a late modern philosopher. So, what is it that Descartes does differently than the medievals? That's the big question, because there's a clear divide there. He's not a medieval philosopher, and the time period doesn't. That's kind of irrelevant. Well, no, I guess no, it's not accurate. It is the time period is relevant, but it's more of what he did as a philosopher, and that I think that has to do with just reinvigorating issues that had not been thought about in the way that he thought about them. That's pretty much the way that I can describe that. A lot of this is influenced by the scientific revolution. So notice the dates. I guess the dates you don't have to know them, but they are important dates. Um, he lived up to 1650. The scientific revolution is basically starting within those 50 years. Well, what 50 years, right? 1600 to 1650, around that time. So Galileo, I think, is publishing a lot of stuff around that time, from 1600 to 1650. Why does the scientific revolution matter? Okay, well, scientists are doing something very different. Um, they are investigating the world with instruments, and they are discovering that we are not the center of the universe, for example, like a lot of people had originally thought. So they're throwing away old belief systems, is basically what I'm saying. And a lot of the belief systems that they're throwing away are the what's called the geocentric, for example, the geocentric model in astronomy. The in the medieval period and during that whole time, everyone thought that the Earth was the center of the universe, and that everything went around us, right? The sun, the other planets went around us. That was the geocentric view. Geo means Earth. So basically, scientists are showing us, because of Copernicus, Copernicus comes before Galileo, that we are not the center of the universe. And basically, this is a shift in knowledge. Knowledge is, in a way, being revolutionized. Um, so, the scientific revolution is not just an interesting historical event, it is a very important shift in knowledge. Descartes is very well aware of all of this, and he sees what scientists are doing. And so he thinks, as a philosopher, and by the way, he's also a mathematician. You've seen the Cartesian coordinate system, the XY axis with the coordinate points. He worked and developed a lot of that. He didn't invent the whole thing. The stories are much more complicated, but he developed a lot of that system, and it did get his name. He did get credit for that system. It's called the Cartesian coordinates. And Cartesius is the Latin name for Descartes. So Descartes is the French name. Cartesius is the Latin. So that's why it's called the Cartesian system. So he was interested in knowledge all around, not just in philosophy, but as well in mathematics, as well as in science. Because he's interested in knowledge, he wants to kind of express all of this in terms of certainty. And we're going to see that that a lot of this has to do with trying to find certainty. That the first meditation, as we dive into the first meditation, we're going to see that certainty is a big issue. In order to understand what Descartes is doing, though, we do have to understand his whole project. And he is. I'm going to show you the meditations in a bit, but he is interested overall. Two things he says he's doing in the meditation. So the major book here, by the way, is Meditations on First Philosophy, and that's where we'll be reading from. We're going to be reading Meditation 1 as well as Meditation 2. Actually, we're going to be reading Meditation 3 as well. So it's Meditations on First Philosophy, and he does tell us that he's doing two things. He is trying to prove God's existence. So a big task of the meditations is God's existence, and also he also tells us that he wants to prove the distinction between body and soul, that there's a difference between body and soul. So that is the overall project in the Meditations on First Philosophy. That's important to us because in order to understand what he's doing in the first meditation, we have to also understand what he tells us he's doing, right? What he tells he's doing overall. So we'll get into that in a little bit. We're actually going to start looking at the first meditation right today before 7:30. But that is his overall project, and that is who he was, philosophically, in the history of philosophy. And again, remember, the key thing here is that he is trying to find something certain, something that is not, that we want to be able to doubt. So let me actually put that as the last point here. Give me 1 second. Again, the last thing here is that he is interested in finding certainty, and that is, in philosophy, that is not uncommon. Philosophers want to find certainty. I think that's one of the things that drove me to philosophy, is to try to find certainty about things. So that's it. I'll stop the recording here, and